Joe Bassett for Valiant Outfitters. I'm in the backyard base camp again to demonstrate some knife skills. You may have heard of Mors Kochanski. He is a Canadian bushcrafter, very influential in the bushcrafting world. He came up with this concept of a try stick, and it's a way to practice essential knife skills no matter where you are. You can do it in backyard base camp, you can do it sitting around the campfire, and there are 10 or 11 of them that he thought were really good to have in your arsenal of skills. Some of the skills in his try stick are pretty advanced. So I've adapted it to come up with what we use as a try stick for Valiant Outfitters, particularly in our Intro to Bushcraft, Intro to Survival courses. They're the ones that I think will get you familiar with using a knife, how to carve most effectively, most efficiently, and then you can get to the more complex ones. If you'd like to see the full article that Mors wrote on his try stick and give yourself a shot at it, I'll have a link down below where you can get a free PDF of that article that will explain all of the different carving techniques he has in his try stick. There are 8 techniques that we teach for the Valiant Outfitters try stick in our intro courses. There's the round reduction and the square reduction, and those are very similar to making a feather stick. There's the pot hanger notch and the saddle notch, the square notch and the V notch, the latch notch, and then also carving a point end and a pommel end. And we'll get into each of those in the next several videos, but we're going to do just the first 2, the reductions, the square reduction and the round reduction in today's video. When choosing the wood or your stick for your try stick, you want something that's about the same diameter as your thumb and about arm's length or longer. You add 5 or 6 inches onto the end. That's a good thing to have so that you have room to grip when you get to notches near the end. Now there is one thing I should share with you. As you're learning this, you're not going to be able to make just one try stick. You're going to try several notches on one of your pieces of wood, on one of your dowels, and then you're going to go on to another one before you can eventually have it all built into one. Normally when I'm in the wild, out in the wilderness, I'm going to look for a softwood, something that's pretty straight. Basswood, willow wood, either of those will work fine. But much like I showed you with doing a feather stick when you're just starting to learn, for the try stick, I let our friends at Home Depot or Lowe's help us out. I go and I just get some wooden dowels. I cut them to length. They're already nice and straight. Look for something that is a softer wood. I'll take my knife with me and I'll take the back edge, and if I can indent with the back edge of my knife, that's a good soft wood for me to use. Now before we begin, let's go over a few of the safety tips, safety reminders that we want to have whenever we work with knives and our cutting tools. First, I want to avoid cutting anywhere between my thighs. This is the blood zone. There are very important arteries here that if I'm cutting towards me, if I slip and I get into those, I'm in a world of hurt and a world of trouble. I also want to make sure that my follow through is safe. All the way around me, arm's length out to the edge of that knife. Also, it's good to have an anvil. In this case, I have just this piece of wood right here, this log, and this is going to make a great anvil. Make sure your knife is good and sharpened. A sharp knife is a safe knife and will make it much easier to learn these skills. First, let's look at the square reduction. This is going to give us some coarse curls. Make sure that you save these curls, because at the end of working on your try stick, you're going to see how good your curls were if you can get a ferro rod to work with them, to get them to light from just a ferro rod. Now the knife that I'm using today is my trusty Mora knife companion. A lot of people ask me why I use this in so many of my videos and why this is my go-to knife. Well, one reason is it's the go-to knife that we recommend for people in our intro courses. It's inexpensive and it really is good, fine quality. It's not a full tang, but it's good enough for our purposes. You could use a folder for this, but a folder knife, remember, you don't want to baton a folder knife, and there are some techniques in this try stick that we teach at Valiant Outfitters that batoning will make it easier, and you don't want to do that with a folder knife. But this will take light batoning. There's also a joke in the bushcrafting and survival industry amongst trainers is A lot of people will say, why don't you use your big BK2? Well, I usually use this for chopping. The joke that we have is when people are coming into camp and they're first meeting us, you always have your big bushcraft knife on your belt so they can all see it. And then the first thing you do is you take that off and you just go for the knife that you use every day. For my square reduction, I want to find about the middle of the stick, and I'm going to work just a little bit towards the end away from me, away from that middle. I'm going to end up flipping it around, and I'm going to work on my round reduction opposite that towards the middle again. So that's about middle there. I'm going to start working down this direction. I want to secure that in my anvil. And much like I did with that feather stick, I want to take my knife as a beginner and I'm going to lay it flat. I'm not going to angle it to get down to the edge yet. And I'm going to use just this first inch to inch and a half on the blade here. It's going to give me good leverage. I'm going to lock that wrist in place. And I have my stick locked in on my anvil. And I'm going to just start rubbing that from the middle down, only a few inches. And I'm going to slowly start to rotate my blade, the edge, down towards the wood until I'm just barely shaving it. And I'll eventually feel it catching, and I'll get some little wispy curls. And it's okay if those curls come off. I'll collect them up later on. It's also okay if they stay on there. And notice they're pretty coarse curls. That's the idea that I want. I want nice coarse curls. Now after I get a few of them on there, and I'll just cut into that and take those curls off. Then I take it and I rotate it 180 degrees and put that flat side down on the bottom. Anchor again. Same process, directly opposite. Use that same process. The knife is flat. And then I'm slowly going to rotate the edge down towards the stick. And then I'll start to make a flat spot. And I'm making that square reduction. Then rotate it 90 degrees so I have a flat spot on either side. Same process. And I'm going to continue that process until I get 90-degree angles from those other two flat spots that I created. Then I'm going to rotate 180 degrees from that, and I'm going to do the last side. Same process, flat knife, slowly rotating that edge down. And you get the idea. I've got my square reduction going. So once I've practiced that a bit and I get a good handle on how to do that square reduction, next I'm going to work on the round reduction. Round reduction is a similar process, but I'm going to use a different area of the knife. On this one, I'm going to move out towards the edge, and that's going to give me much finer curls. I had coarse curls for the square reduction. For the round reduction, I want fine curls. Anchor in my anvil, and that was about where my middle section was. Move just a little bit side of it, and notice I'm going to take that knife, and I'm out here more towards the tip. And I'm going to do flat, and then I'm going to slowly rotate my knife in. And you can see that I'm getting much finer curls. Also, once I find that angle of my grind, I'm taking my stick and I'm slowly rotating it so I'm never cutting twice in the same area. Now you can see what happened there was I went on too aggressive an angle and I dug into the wood. I want to avoid that as much as possible. So I'm going to come back to flat and slowly turn or angle that edge in. If I get those curls, I can cut those out and go back and start to repeat that same process. If I need to, it's okay to flip this around, anchor it again, and start to work on the other side. Much like with working a feather stick, the idea is you're shaving wood off. You don't want to think of cutting into the wood, you want to think shaving the wood. Now, as you progress with either the squared reduction or the round reduction, as you're learning, you're going to dig in a little bit. You're going to get some gouges. You're going to get some pretty deep cuts. That's okay. That's why we have a nice long piece of wood. I can try in another spot and redo it. This is also why I say your first try stick is going to take a bunch of tries. You're going to work on one or two disciplines on one try stick, and then you're going to go for another. It's not a waste of wood. A lot of people think, well, I have this big long piece of wood. Maybe I should cut it shorter and just work on that so I can conserve that wood. You want to have it as long as possible. Longer is much better. Longer gives you much more room for error. There's your first two skills to practice while you're out in the woods this weekend. Your square reduction and your round reduction. Next Wilderness Wednesday, we're going to come back for two more skills. And after we do several of those videos, you're going to have your own try stick that you can work on. Thanks for joining me. This is Joe Bassett for Valiant Outfitters. Hey, if you found this helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you back for another Wilderness Wednesday where we keep working on our try stick.